What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is the Science Dispatch podcast. My name is Cameron English, joined by special guest host Anna Dolaski. Our video producer does all of our awesome video reporting on YouTube and X and Instagram. And we have a special guest, Dr. Simon Maechling, chemist, science communication extraordinaire. You rile up trolls on X like I've never seen before. You're right. You're great in a lab, and you just know how to press these people's buttons. So welcome to our podcast. It's an honor to have you.
Nice to be here. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into it, and I want to start with the basics. Introduce people to you if they don't know who you are, and then maybe talk a little bit about why you're a masochist, perhaps. Like, why do you get on X? Because you do great work. I'm being kind of tongue-in-cheek there. You do great work. You reach out to people. You answer questions. You take on a lot of the nonsense that's out there about chemistry broadly, but vaccines, pesticides, GMOs, all of these topics that are always in the headlines. So maybe let's start there.
Yeah, so Simon Maechling, chemist by training. I got my PhD in organic chemistry from a university in the UK. I work at Biocrop Science. I've been in the R&D division at Biocrop Science for 20 years. Different labs, different roles. And live and work in France today, so I'm based in Lyon. Why did I hit the waves on X? Well, I got fed up of reading BS, so bad science, as we call it in France. And I thought that there needs to be a place for evidence-based discourse. And I thought, well, why not give it a go? And so I started to write about things which I'm passionate about, some chemistry, pesticides, GMOs, some things where I have a lot of experience to try and share some knowledge and hopefully, add another drop of information to the vast ocean of misinformation.
I think what I'm most impressed by is that you get incredible engagement. You write really compelling content, but there's a lot of people that do that and they're shouting into the ether, right? Like nobody's listening. You seem to have hit the magic combination, which is great because, and I see that you get frustrated with this. We get frustrated with it too. Someone will put out the most ridiculous claim. They say it very confidently. Like last week, I saw someone say the flu vaccine causes autism, or like just one of the, maybe you saw that too, absurd things like this, and they say it and they go a new study, and in reality it's a pamphlet from an environmental group or something. Like it's nothing, but it explodes on X. I mean, millions upon millions of views, thousands of retweets. So is that what it was? You saw that and you went, I have to jump in here and push back on some of this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the stuff that was going viral, the nonsense, and I use this term nonsense a lot on X at the moment, that was going viral, and I was like, what? Why are scientists not having the opportunity to go viral on X? And I have no idea how or why the algorithm works, or how or why some of my tweets get millions of views when talking about science and evidence-based science. I have no idea how or why it happens. Sometimes it happens, and I wish it happens more often to counter what's out there, to bring reality back to the talking table.
I think what worries me, and Liza and I have talked about, Dr. Liza Lockwood, who I do another podcast with, I don't think people realize the fire that they're playing with. You know, and we talk about this, we'll talk about the situation in Sri Lanka. You know, her favorite, and it's favorite is the wrong word, but the anecdote that she brings up a lot is you get these young women, they work on tea plantations, you take away the herbicides that they spray to control weeds, and then they get to hand weed and they get bitten by cobras, right? Like, there's no American that knows the horror of that experience. And we're so casual about it, and, you know, like cobra bites aren't a problem here, but higher food prices, that could be a real problem. You know, a lack of access to medicine that could kill your children, that is a real possibility. And I don't think, well, I guess what the question is, where's the disconnect between what people are saying and the downstream consequences that they don't really grasp? Where do you think that lies?
Yeah, I think the disconnect is really around the fact that we're living longer than before. We're living in a much more comfortable lifestyle than before. We have access to abundant and healthy food, and I know Liza, and she says this a lot. We've never lived in a period where we've had more food, more abundant, cheap food available to us. We live in a time of abundant energy, because I want to bring the energy part into the equation. Energy is really, really important. And so I think there's this disconnect because we're happy and we're confident and we have access to these things, that it opens a door of opportunity for people to create new business models. And these business models are around using fear to sell a product.
So are we all suffering from a giant case of survivorship bias?
Essentially, yes.
It seems to be what it is, right? Like, I hear these stories of people dying at 40 years old because their food was contaminated by a noxious weed, right? Like, nobody knows that that's a real thing. Like, there's nasty stuff that will infect your food, and we control it with chemicals.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anna.
I was just going to chime in and say Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein wrote something recently that stuck with me, and it said, the memory of disease has faded, right? And I think that holds very, very true today. Would you agree, especially on X and the misinformation that's out there?
Yeah, totally agree. And there's a lot of parallels of what I'm seeing that's happening or happened in France, and that is happening or has happened in the US as well. These parallels specifically around this idea that natural agriculture is better in some way, this idea that natural immunity is in some way better. And there's a lot of parallels between these different movements. We call it the ecologist movement in France. In the US, you have another name for it. And there are a lot of parallels happening.
Think let's do the natural versus synthetic distinction, because that's your wheelhouse.
That's an easy one.
Everybody always brings it up, and I can't understand why, because it doesn't matter. There's natural stuff that will kill you dead, as we were just discussing. There's synthetic stuff that will keep you alive, that will protect you from the natural stuff. And sometimes it's reversed, right? Like, all it matters really when it comes to chemistry, and you can elaborate on this, is the dose and the route of exposure. Yeah. That's really all it comes down to. And so there's no like magical category of foods or medicines that just kind of float down from heaven and then these are the good ones. Talk about that if you would.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great one to talk about, this concept that everything that is from nature is good and everything that is not from nature is bad. And we hear the term synthetic, petroleum-based. These things are put into this bucket immediately and perceived to be bad and wrong, whereas if it's natural, a natural food dye, a natural supplement, then it's perceived to be good. Even if the natural supplement or food dye is being synthesized in a lab. And it's an easy shortcut for humans to make. It's an easy logical step, I think. And that's why so many people fall for this nature-based fallacy. It is the most common fallacy I come across every single day. The concept or the perception that natural is better. And you've said it yourself very well. There are millions of things. In fact, nature is the only job of nature is to try and kill us. That is what nature is trying to do. And science is actually what's helping keep us alive.
I have a question. You recently posted something about the term organic and what it really means, and it really took off. You got quite the attacks there. A lot of people said, yeah, but Simon, that's not what we mean when we say organic. You're being too specific. You're being too much of a scientist. And I thought to myself, well, what do you think it's supposed to mean? He is a scientist, and he is trying to explain to you what organic actually means. So I feel like that was a full-time job for you that day, just responding.
It was a busy one. I like to respond. I try not to feed the trolls, although I do not always take my own advice. And I think it's a good one to see, to understand and see how people perceive this word and double down on their own beliefs and meaning of this word when it could mean something completely different. I mean, organic is nothing in Europe. Organic is nothing but a label you pay for. To have on your food after following a strict set of rules which may or may not be logical. And I'll go one step further, and I've written about this before. I mean, copper sulfate is the biggest used fungicide in organic farming in Europe, and used on vines and on vegetables. The question I often ask people when I talk to them in real life is, does anybody know where the copper sulfate comes from, where it's mined? People will guess Chile, Brazil, China. Of course, copper sulfate isn't mined. It's produced in a factory on a 400,000 ton scale by taking copper and mixing it at 200 degrees Celsius with sulfuric acid and then neutralizing it with sodium hydroxide.
Wait, it doesn't grow on a copper sulfate tree that you just...
Nope.
No?
So it's the pinnacle of organic farming. It's a synthetic chemical.
So... what... They have to know this, right? And I don't want to accuse people of being cynical, because a lot of people on X don't know. That was one of the things I was really surprised to learn when I started jumping into this a while back, is that there are people with real questions. They have been lied to, manipulated, whatever phrase you want to use. But the people that do it for a living, like the growers that use those practices, they must know, and the advocates that really defend these labels, the non-GMO project and stuff, they have to know, because they're not dumb. They're very good at what they do. So I'm wondering if you care to speculate what's going on there when they push these arguments forward.
Yeah, I mean, the non-GMO project. I mean, this is part of the problem. They know, so the people that work there know that there is no such thing as non-GMO water or non-GMO salt. The 10,000-year-old Himalayan salt that expires at the end of next year. These things labeled non-GMO. I also believe that there's maybe the 40-50% in the middle somewhere, people that believe that these practices are better, and maybe some of them are. I'm not saying that everything is bad. It's always one of the most common phrases I use in real life is it's not that simple. It's not as black and white as that. And so I think there's people that believe that some of these things can be more virtuous. I mean, in a couple of groups as well, where we work with organic farmers and try to help them do better and also learn from them, because there are some things. And that's why I come back to the comment about evidence-based decision-making very often. It's like, let's use evidence to make our decisions in order to take the best tools that we have available to us from all the possible tools that are out there in order to make the best decisions. And in this particular discussion, the best decision, at least for me, is to grow as much as food possible from as least land as possible. So in Europe, we have this spare share argument. Spare is I spare other areas of land and grow as much as I can from the smallest footprint. And then the share argument is more the agroforestry approach, is where I take up lots and lots of land, but then have mixed plots, which is generally lower yielding.
And go ahead, Anna.
I was going to say we recently released a video on glyphosate because of all the debate and controversy surrounding this timely topic. And, we were called shills. Mm-hmm. We were called despicable. I think, Cam, that was more directed toward you, right? And, some of the first comments we got on YouTube were, who's paying you to say this? This cannot be true. And what we did was we simply provided 5 facts, accurate scientific facts on glyphosate that everybody needs to know right now. Separate the myth from the facts from the myths, and here's what you need to know. And the first question we get is, who's paying you to say this? Because there's no way in heck that we would just be saying this without payment. And I'm sure that you get the same. What's the meanest thing you've heard about yourself online?
Let me take a look at my feed
if you
today.
Can even say it.
I mean, resilience is a key word here. I mean, I'm very lucky in France. I have a couple of friends that I rely on for psychological resilience, because some days can be tougher than others. I get a lot of comments, a lot of negative comments. I get a lot of positive comments as well. I don't want to say it's all negative. I get a lot of positive comments as well. Everything. I've heard everything I think about me and who people think I am. And I think what keeps me going, and especially when I talk about the platform on X, is I don't know if everybody realizes how many of those comments and those people aren't actually real. How many of them are actually chaos bots designed to work to create doubt especially doubt in industry and industry scientists for an objective, to feed doubt in the public eye when things come to a court, especially in the US. That's positive that the public already think negatively about a subject. And we've heard the different things from the risk monger, for example, talcum powder, a glyphosate's another classic. It's order to feed a business model. I don't think people realise the energy and the effort put in to feed this business model of tort law specifically in the US. Because it's amazing for me, and I'll say the G word. I'll mention glyphosate, and I'll mention Monsanto later. It's amazing that glyphosate only causes cancer in the USA.
Yeah, it seems to be because every other court system is just somewhat sensible. And when they look at the evidence, they go, well, there's a giant stack up here, and then you have this one stupid report from 2015. No! Dismissed!
And this is exactly what the EFSA did. So the EFSA is the European Food Safety Agency. When they reviewed glyphosate a couple of years ago, they had that giant stack of data and documentation, and they went through it. The most thorough review ever, hundreds of thousands of pages, multiple year, independent scientists, and they came back with the conclusion that when used according to the label, this poses no risk to the consumer.
And the label, by the way, does not in any case say, take a sip of this. It never says that. And I don't know why. I don't know who originated this, Simon. I think it may have started with the vaccine thing years ago. Well, if it's so good, why don't you drink it? And this is why the route of exposure thing is so important, is that if it's safe to spray on a weed, that doesn't mean you should mix it in with your Gatorade.
Exactly, in the same way that you shouldn't be drinking bleach or
Right.
Other cleaning solutions in your home. And you said it at the very beginning, and this is the fundamental basis of toxicology, is the dose makes the poison.
Are you guys referring to common sense?
Well, but the thing that gets me about that is there are very capable people, to go somewhat back to the point I just made. Like there was a psychiatrist, I think, who was saying glyphosate causes Alzheimer's. So I clicked through to the paper, and sure enough, they were just pumping these rats' stomachs full of like 12,000 times what farmers are exposed to, which is higher than what consumers are exposed to. And it's a strain of rodent that is bred to develop Alzheimer's. And so I'm like, look, man, you can't just tell people it causes Alzheimer's if it's in a model animal that you use to test Alzheimer's drugs, right? It doesn't make any sense. So
It doesn't make sense, but you can tell people to do it, and people are being monetized on X in order to say these things. It's part of their revenue. I don't even think I bothered debunking that one. It was just really bad study. It's like I can't even be bothered on that one.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. Well, let's talk a little bit about energy, because I know that's another one of your favorite topics, and it's important. It's important. We like it as well. By the way, we posted a video about nuclear energy, and I think one of the comments was, sure enough, right? You're funded by industry. I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. But
give me the paycheck.
Yeah. What I don't get though is that when we're talking specifically about nuclear, we're talking about a very safe, regulated source of energy, probably too regulated, I would say. It's carbon free. It's abundant. You could, it's effectively limitless. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's discouraged, or it's attacked by the typical environmental NGO people. And then there's a handful of, I guess, sort of like right-leaning libertarians that like nuclear power. And then nobody else cares. And then we just function as if there's fossil fuels, and then there's solar power. And if you like fossil fuels, well, you're evil, and you want little seals to drown in oil, or whatever. You know what I mean? So we just sort of don't talk about it. And when we do talk about it, it's nonsense. So your thoughts on that topic, please.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm French, despite my strong British accent. France runs from 70% nuclear, so 70% of our electricity generation is from nuclear power. This gives us sort of CO2 equivalents of between 20 to 40 grams per kilowatt hour produced. And this is really important for discussion, because if you want to have cheap, abundant energy, nuclear and hydro, if you're lucky to have dams, is the way to go. And the situation in France has become so absurd is that we're turning down the nuclear power generation during the day in order to allow space for solar, and then turning it back up at night when the sun isn't shining. And so if you actually think about this, we're deliberately using creating risk by turning on and off nuclear power when we could just leave it on all the time and feed all the needs of the country. And so we're having to adjust the energy generation from nuclear in order to make way for the renewables, which only actually bring the level of CO2 higher when you're using renewables, because you need to have some coal somewhere to burn, because coal you can turn on and off very, very quickly. And so the whole thing has become in France absurd, and that's why I've become more and more vocal around the benefits of nuclear power in terms of cheap and abundant energy, and especially when I look at our neighbours in Germany that made the mistake of turning off their nuclear power stations, and then recently some European leaders have turned around and said that it's actually a mistake. And so a lot of us are here, we told you that 10 years ago and you didn't listen.
Yeah, one of the things I've observed over the years, and I think this is pertinent especially with the passing of Paul Ehrlich, is that when we do have very serious consequences, like where everyone's always predicting the end of the world, we're going to run out of bees, we're going to, the sun's going to melt us, or whatever the thing is, from my vantage point, we're going to do something terrible to ourselves, as we were talking about at the top. And the energy example is great, right? Like, we are paying more money for sources of energy that are ineffective
Yeah.
or at least insufficient.
And no batteries won't save it either.
Right. It just doesn't, like, you have to subsidize it, and then you have to keep it working with fossil fuels. You can't even build the technology itself without oil and gas.
Yeah.
It's just so wild. And like this is what leads me to the conclusion that these people, they honestly don't want success, right? They don't want humans to thrive. They don't want us to flourish, because if they did, the answer is so obvious and it's workable. And yet all we can do is keep talking about Chernobyl, right? It's just so crazy.
Yeah, and just to jump very briefly into politics, I don't like talking about politics, but I do it from time to time. In Europe, we have, and I don't know how it is in the US, but we have this degrowth movement. So this group of people that want to stop the growth of humans, so want to stop economic growth, and want to focus on saving the planet. And I fundamentally believe if we want to do great things for the planet, we need an economy in order to do ecology. And we need to have growth in our societies in order to invest in R&D, invest in innovation, in order to do the great things like the great things we've done in the last 50 years.
So I don't know if you have thoughts on Paul Ehrlich, but I find him to be probably the archetype of the arch-villain environmentalist. Like there are quotes from him and from others, to speak to your point about degrowth, where they'll talk about people in India, or they'll talk about people in a developing country as if they're like a fungus, or they're just this superfluous life that we could do without. And I think I saw someone post this. At one point, and I think it was in the 60s, he said we should stop giving food aid to India because it's a lost cause, And that's just wicked, right? Like, I think about, there's parents over there that have children, young children like I do, and they want to feed their kids and give them medicine. Like, to talk that way about another human, it's just kind of horrifying to me. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I completely agree with you. It's absolutely horrifying to think about this. And in all of this, if we reduce the amount of food we produce by limiting access to different technologies, I often ask the question, who are you going to choose? If we don't grow enough food in France to feed the French people, well, then who are we going to choose? Well, I'm not going to choose my family. What about your family? And it becomes a real philosophical question.
Yeah. There's, I don't know if it's the same thing as degrowth. I think it's probably related, but there's this concept of deep ecology. And this is one of their kind of more kooky philosophical ideas, is that humans are just one species among others, right? Like, we're all kind of, rivers and bugs, and like, we're all brothers and sisters living under gays or whatever. I don't know, right? But they really do see humanity as just, like, some is good, more is bad. And we can basically, from our perches in the academy and our high-rise Manhattan headquarters, we can dictate how much you're allowed to eat, what you're allowed to eat, where you can live. Everything about your life is under our control because we're very smart and we have lots of money. That's basically what it comes down to, and they won't phrase it that plainly, but that's really what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and here's the question which I really struggle to answer, and I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm going to pose the question. I'm not expecting you to answer either, so disclaimer, But here's the question which I come back to time and time again, and I don't know how to answer it, is if we assume that humans are the only intelligent life form in the galaxy, or in multiple galaxies, or in the universe, when does it become our obligation to inhabit and bring other species to other planets? And I don't know the answer to the question, but it's a different way of looking at the problem. If we are the only intelligent life form in the universe, don't we have an obligation to propagate life?
That's interesting. I'll have to put some thought into that. That did not go in the direction I was anticipating.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to the question.
I think, what I would say is that we have an obligation to be good stewards of the planet. And I think part of that actually includes developing technologies that, like you were talking about the spare versus share debate, right? If we can grow more food on less land, we should do that. If we can power hospitals around the world without pumping carbon into the atmosphere, we should do that too, right? Like things that minimize our impact on the environment, I think are good. But human flourishing is important. And again, as we were talking about, you don't want to get a cut on your finger and then get a serious bacterial infection that'll kill you. Like that happened back in the day. You know what I mean? And if you get a cut, you're like, oh, a little Neosporin, I'm good to go, right?
Yeah.
That was not history. That was not the world that most people inhabited. And so if we can prevent suffering, we should. And I don't know that there's a good counter argument to that.
I agree.
Okay. Let's see. I think we should just point people to your X because that's where all the action is. All kinds of good stuff. Let me get your handle here. It's just at Simon Maechling, which is pretty simple.
Yeah, it's at my real name. So I chose a while back when I chose to post under my real name. I think people are looking for people. People want to follow people, not brands. And I made that choice. I was a bit cautious. I've seen other people do it that have been successful, and so I said, that's going to be me. I don't want to hide behind a pseudonym, although I understand that some people might want to. I talk about science. I talk about things I do in the lab. I talk about many things. I sometimes post about music. I also play double bass and saxophone. I think, Cam, you're a percussionist?
Yeah. I play the drums. There's been some debate. About whether that counts as musicianship. I can sight read. So for the haters out there, can you see my fingers? I'm a musician. Your favorite music would not be the same without drums. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. We did a jazz concert last week and absolutely agree.
Yeah.
You're human. Yeah. I love it. We love to humanize our action staff too.
By the way, I just have to add, yes, when you say, by the way, I'm a real person, because people accuse you of being a bot. They're like, you're a corporate bot and you were engineered to defend pesticides.
This is me.
A final question that just occurred to me. You said earlier you get lots of positive responses as well. Yeah. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the people that come to you and go, hey, gee, thanks. I had a question and you actually answered it, and I really appreciate that. Talk about that before we go.
Yeah, I mean, these are the. I get a lot of positive DMs and a lot of positive comments as well, and it's so easy sometimes just to focus on the negativity because there is a lot of negativity on X, and the positive ones, they're the ones that make my day when someone comes up to me or writes you a message and saying, actually, Simon, I didn't know it from that point of view, or you really helped me. And I think some of the best ones I've got were from teachers, which then took something I said, researched it themselves, found out that it was true through their own research, and then were able to pass that message on to their students. And they're the diamonds. They're the ones which I really, really enjoy.
Yeah. Good stuff. And that solidifies trust like nothing else, because you tell people something, they go look as you tell them to do, and they go, oh, wow, he was telling me the truth. Okay, I can rely on what this guy says about these topics. That's really good. So awesome.
Very cool. Hey, before we go, Simon, should we play a little rapid fire questions?
Yeah.
All right. So these are kind of fun. Some are a little sciencey, but the trick is to stick to 1 to 2 word answers.
Okay.
I think this will be a great addition for our social media so people can get to know you a little better. How's that?
Yeah, cool.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Biggest health myth? Ooh.
Biggest health myth. There's so many of them.
1 to 2 words. 1 to 2 words.
I'm not going to give a health myth, but just eat a varied diet of fresh fruits, vegetables, and different proteins.
All right. Most overrated trend?
Most overrated trend. I haven't got one for the moment.
I'll say organic. Here we go.
Thank you.
Cure or prevention?
Prevention.
Risk or caution?
Risk-based assessments.
Nature or nurture?
Uh-oh.
Trick question.
It depends.
And you're canceled.
Sleep or exercise?
Both.
Okay. 1 word future of science, if you can think of it.
Trust.
Lab or field?
Oh, I like both.
That's okay. Both is a 1 word answer. Fast or accurate?
Sorry?
Fast or accurate?
There's got to be a halfway house there. I mean, you don't want to get off the motorway. You don't want to drive so slowly you miss the party, but you don't want to drive so fast you miss your exit.
All right. Last one. Legacy or impact?
Impact.
Good work.
Those are good questions. Those are good. All right. Very good. Well, once again, follow Dr. Simon Maechling. Just his full name. It's not at real name. It's at his name, by the way. Just don't get confused there. You can follow us as well. It's at ACSH.org. Anna is at A. Dolosky, if I'm not mistaken. I'm at Cam J. English. These videos, they go on YouTube. We'll put clips on X. They're on our website, acsh.org. Thank you so much for joining us as always, and we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot. Bye.